Loading and unloading together account for more than half of the operating time of a forwarder. So acquiring a good technique for operating the grapple loader is vital, not only to productivity, but also to avoiding damage to the machine or the standing trees. Good forwarder work also helps subsequent haulage. Forwarder operators are prone to injury in the form of strained muscles in the neck, shoulders, and arms. A good operating technique helps to avoid occupational injuries like these. To maintain full control over operation of the boom, you must be seated properly. The first job is to adjust the tension of the springing in the seat to suit your own weight. The controls for adjusting the seat differ slightly from one make to another, so always refer to the operator's manual for your particular machine. Next, adjust the height of the seat so that the front of the cushion is not applying pressure to the back of your knees or thighs. The control is usually here. Once again, refer to the instructions for your particular make of seat. Finally, adjust the armrests and controls to the most comfortable position. Lower the controls relative to the height of the armrest so that your wrists are as straight as possible. And don't forget to adjust the angle of the top of the control. The angle between the upper arm and forearm should be at least 110 degrees. Once you're sitting comfortably and the controls are positioned correctly, you're ready to start work. But it's also important to synchronize the different boom functions so that you can manipulate the boom smoothly. This means setting the speeds of the different boom movements. Adjust the basic setting as described in the operating manual for the machine. Start by checking the neutral or home position of the lever. Any necessary adjustment is made by means of the Allen screw in the bottom of the potentiometer. With the lever in neutral, the wipers should not be in contact with the resistor coil. But as soon as the lever is moved between 5 and 10 millimeters, or a quarter of to half an inch, the wipers make contact and the indicating light on the control unit comes on. Keeping the lever in this position, set the slowest speed by means of the adjusting screw for minimum speed. Now move the lever all the way and set the maximum speed as detailed in the operating manual by means of the adjusting screw for maximum speed. When this has been done, test drive the machine to make sure you can manipulate the boom under perfect control. When slewing the boom out to the pile of logs, remember the boom should be made to take the shortest path, smoothly and without jerking. If you manipulate only one function at a time, boom operation will often be jerky, resulting in much less precise movement. When operating a long reach loader, use the telescopic boom extension in combination with the main boom. If the logs are close to the machine, don't lower the main boom farther than the horizontal position. Otherwise, with some types of boom, it's easy to damage the standing trees. Always aim to grip the logs where they're evenly balanced, thus keeping the height they need to be lifted as low as possible. On the other hand, if the ends of the logs need to be aligned, grip the bunch nearer the end so that the logs hang almost vertically as they're lifted. Resting the lower end of the bunch on the ground, partly open the grapple and slide it down the logs using the boom slewing mechanism to help align the ends. Take care not to damage any residual trees as the logs are tipped up. To avoid picking up slash in the load, raise the grapple at the same time as it grips the logs. When swinging the load into the machine, make sure that neither the grapple nor the logs hit any standing trees. Lift the logs along the shortest path and avoid rotating the bunch unnecessarily. It's far better to work slowly with precision than to work quickly with jerky movements. Now let's see how the logs should be stacked on the machine. Spread the load evenly by placing the logs on the lowest part of the load. Open the grapple slightly and align the ends of the logs against the cab guard. Release the logs by opening the grapple wide and raising it at the same time. Always try to have a full load in the grapple, even when, like here, the logs are in two piles, one behind the other. If the lifting capacity of the boom allows, lift the outer pile onto the inner one first. The two piles can now be loaded in one go instead of two. If you judge that the lifting capacity of the boom is not enough to lift the outer pile onto the inner one, load the inner pile first. Stop the machine at a point where there is least likelihood of the standing trees being damaged as you load the logs. It's better to move the machine than to try to load many piles from the same setup, risking damage to the stand. Sometimes, you'll have to manipulate the loader and move the machine at the same time, such as when the strip road is narrow and the logs have been piled between trees. When there's a high concentration of wood, plan your route so that you avoid mixing assortments in the load. Load the main assortment first. Then load the odd assortments by returning along the same route. On the other hand, in difficult terrain, or where the piles are spaced widely apart, you should load several assortments in the same load. If necessary, you can top up the load with the main assortment from points nearer the landing. To make the work of unloading easier when there are mixed assortments in the load, load the odd assortments at the sides. Now let's see how unloading should be done. What we aim for here is to keep boom movement to a minimum. When the distance between the boom post or mast and the midpoint of the load is the same as the distance between the boom mast and the midpoint of the unloaded logs, only a small amount of movement of the outer boom will be necessary. This saves valuable time. Grip the logs at the point of balance. This will avoid lifting them higher than necessary and allow greater precision in placing them on the pile. Synchronizing the movement of the main boom and telescopic section also speeds up the operation. If the logs are gripped too near the cab, they'll have to be lifted much higher. And other logs will be pushed out of the pile as the load is lowered into place. Stack the logs carefully. Discharge the load into valleys in the pile so that the logs are supported at the side. Remember to lift the grapple at the same time as you open it to discharge the load. The logs will then line up more readily without the grapples disturbing the rest of the pile. If an occasional log should protrude from the end of the pile, use the grapple to align it like this. Always aim to position the pile at right angles to the road. Move the machine as you go so that the load is always discharged in line with the boom post. Otherwise, the pile will soon adopt an oblique angle to the road. Always try to unload the logs toward the truck road. Although if, as here, the road is hard and the edge of the stand fairly close, it may be better to discharge the load from the road. The end product of the forwarding work is the piles of logs at the landing. Here, good forwarder technique can also help streamline the secondary haulage operation. Here are some of the ways forwarder operators can help. The turning zone is for truck rigs. If the zone is obstructed, costly reloading may be necessary. If the road is soft, keep your machine off-road and discharge the load toward the road. If you're forced to drive onto the road, avoid turning sharply. And use pulpwood bolts to protect drainage ditches and edges of the road. Don't pile logs under overhead lines. And don't pile logs on gradients in the winter. If a mobile loader is to be used, leave at least 5.5 meters between the pile and the opposite side of the road. In the winter, remember to leave access for snowplows. Contribute to road safety. Don't unload short bolts that could fall off the haulage rig. So, for efficient unloading work, think about positioning the machine correctly, taking the next bunch from the highest part of the load and gripping it at the point of balance, operating the boom smoothly, discharging the bunch into a valley to build a secure pile. Now let's recap some of the points we've seen by watching a forwarder at work in a final felling tract. Look for both good points and bad points. Notice how the operator always strives to use the maximum capacity of the loader. You can also see how he keeps the load level by placing the butt ends and top ends alternately toward the cab. Here, the operator is bunching the logs so that he can get a full grapple load. Notice how he aligns the ends of the logs at the same time as he finds the point of balance, all saving time and increasing productivity. Remember that unloading is easier if the load is convex, so start at the side. Then from the middle, then from the other side, and so on.